Hello, good morning, children. Welcome to class 10th. Today we are going to start with the chapter Resource and Development. Resource and Development, children. First, let me tell you about what is a resource. You are very familiar with this word resource. Anything which is available on this surface and has the capacity to satisfy human needs, we call it as a resource. Is it clear? Very simple definition. And development, all of you know, it is a progress. The progress we do in terms of, or the nation do in terms of industry, agriculture, development, infrastructural development, etc. So now I'm going to teach you in detail because resource is not only confined to just satisfying the human needs. The definition goes more further. Yes, children, now let us look at PPT. Yes, so what is resource? Everything available in our environment which can be used to satisfy our needs, provided it is technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable. So now let me tell you what is the meaning of technologically accessible. We should know the proper technology to utilize the resources where we can utilize the resource to the fuller capacity and while minimizing the wastage of resources. Now let us come to or we can say it is a judicial utilization of resource. The next one is economically feasible. What is economically feasible? The resource should be cost effective. Now, what is the cost effective? For example, we know that the nation has to allocate resources for various purposes, like for defense, for education, for health, etc. And if the cost of production of resources is more than the country like India, as we know, it is a developing country, very difficult for it to make it as a economically feasible. And the next one is your culturally acceptable. What is culturally acceptable? Culturally acceptable means that there is no hindrance for utilizing those or using those resources. Hindrance in terms of tradition, religion, custom, etc. Now it is pretty clear what is resource. Now come to the next slide. Now let us move to the next slide called classification of resources. Now, resources are classified on a different category. On the basis of origin, we are classifying as biotic and abiotic resources. On the basis of exhaustibility, we classify them as renewable and non-renewable. On the basis of ownership, it is individual resource, community resource, national and international. And on the basis of status of development, it is potential, developed, stock and reserve. Now we will discuss it one by one very clearly. Yes, so now the first one is, what is biotic resource? Now as the name itself suggests, biotic means something related to the life. So anything which has a life, we call it as a biotic resources. For example, the flora, fauna, etc. They are the biotic resources. Abiotic resources, the resources which do not have the life, we call it as a abiotic resources. They are your rocks, metal, etc. Yes, so on the basis of exhaustibility, so children, what is exhaustibility? Exhaustibility or exhaustible resource means which get end, which finishes up very quickly. That is on that basis we are classifying the resources as renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Now children, let me just clear you. What is renewable resources? The resource which can be replenished or reproduced on a given period of time, we call it, or regenerated on a given period of time, we call it as a renewable resources. The resource which cannot be replenished or regenerated or reproduced on a given period of time, we call it as a non-renewable resources. Now, renewable resources are inexhaustible in nature. It means they cannot finish up so quickly. And non-renewable resources are exhaustible in nature. When we overutilize them, they will get finished in a certain period of time. Sometimes, children, we call renewable resources as a continuous resources also, and non-renewable as a discontinuous resources. The example of renewable resources: solar energy, wind energy, forest, water, wildlife, all these are continuous. And what are non-renewable resources like metal, fossil fuel, etc.? They are non-renewable resources. Example of non-renewable resources. Yes. So now, on the basis of ownership, we again classify the resources into 4 different categories. They are individual resource, community resource, international resource, and national resource. Now, children, individual resource, as the name itself suggests, individual means it belongs to a person or a group of person or individual, etc. They are called as a individual. They are privately owned. For example, my house, my car, your house, your car, your land, etc. They are the individual resources. The next one is the community resource, the resource which is owned by a community. The individual cannot claim them that this resource belongs to them. So, community resource, for example, the playground, the burial ground, the park, the picnic spot, etc. all are the community resource. The community, the surrounding people have the ownership to utilize them according to their need. No individual can say that that resource belongs to them. It belongs to the whole community. Then come to the next one, national resource. Legally, all resources which are there on the territory of a nation belongs to the national resource. Because if the country has to develop or move on the developmental process, need to make a road, bridges, etc., they can take your land, they can take your property, etc., to make those things. So therefore, and that obviously the government is going to give compensation on that, but that is called as a national resource. So anything which belongs within the territory of a nation, we call it as a national resources. For example, water hai, mineral hai, forest, all these are your national resources. And even there are certain resources we found it in the oceanic bed. For example, we have Mumbai High. So that is near the ocean. So therefore, that resource belongs to nation because it is within the 12 nautical mile of that area. So that is called as a national resource. So any resource which is beyond the 12 nautical mile, and that is 19.2 kilometer from the nation boundary till the ocean, that is owned by the nation. And what is international resource? The resource which belongs to the beyond the 200 kilometer of the exclusive economic zone, we call it as a international resource. And no nation can claim that these resources belong to them. For example, children, when any ship crosses, and if crosses beyond the what we call ocean, 200 kilometer beyond the ocean, nobody can stop that ship, etc. But if it comes within the 200 kilometer mile, then any nation has the legal authority to check them or to stop them, etc. So that we call it as a international resources. Now I know it is pretty clear to all of you. On the basis of ownership, we are classifying the resources into four categories: individual, community, international, and national. Now again, the another type of classification of resources is on the basis of development. So on the basis of development, we again classify the resources at the potential resource, developed resource, stock, and reserve. Now let me tell you or explain you what is potential resource. We generally say, teacher generally say, you have a lot of potential to do better in your exam, and we don't know the reason why you have not performed. So likewise, nation also have a potential resource. We have a huge, enormous possibility of solar energy in India because India is located in tropical as well as the subtropical zone. And especially to the area like Rajasthan, Gujarat, etc., we have enormous possibility of extracting the resources or utilizing the solar energy or the wind energy. We do have certain plant of solar plant, or we have a wind system there, but it is not fully developed. So we call it as a potential. Yes, we know the technology to develop them. We may utilize them future. That is there. So that is that kind of resource. We call it as a potential resource. Now, what is developed resource? Developed resource is a type of resource which is qualitatively as well as quantitatively is properly surveyed, measured, and utilized. We are utilizing them to their fuller capacity, like crude oil, iron ore, etc. We are utilizing them for various purposes. They are called as a developed resource. Now come to the next one called stock. Stock is a type of resources which are available on the surface of the earth, but we do not know the technology to utilize them. It is given in your book, H2O, hydrogen and oxygen combined together make a water. But appropriate technology is not known to us. So that kind of resource we call it as a stock. And the next one is called as a reserve. Reserve is that kind of resource which is deliberately kept for to be utilized in future. For example, America has kept the oil reserve in their country. They are buying it from the other country and utilize it there. That resource like oil they can utilize in terms of any crisis, etc. So they are called as a reserve. It is a subset of stock. Like the water in the dam, forest, etc. is a reserve which can be used in future. So these are the different category of resources which are classified on the basis of development. Thank you, children. Now it is pretty clear that very simple and you have understood it. I'm giving you a few questions and you need to do that question. So please write down the question. Number one. Number one. Yes, you are writing. I hope you are writing. Yes. Number one. What do you understand by the term resource? Second question. Second question. Yes. Write it down. Differentiate between renewable and non-renewable resources. Next one. Again, between biotic and abiotic resources. Write down the third question. Classify the resource on the basis of development. Classify the resource on the basis of development. Yes. So now children, please do this question and bring it. And I'm going to give, again we are going to make another video to proceed this chapter future. Thank you.